share our observations on a very relevant and topical subject, which a lot of businesses today are grappling with. Now, what we have here is we'll spend the next 10 to 12 minutes just outlining some of what we have observed globally in India and share some of the examples in terms of case studies, etc., to outline what does it actually mean to operate in a world which is extremely volatile and uncertain, which, by the way, we are terming as the new normal. So the world is undergoing a lot of change. There are major trends which are sweeping the world, and a lot of these trends are changing the way business is being done. Now, as we see, no sector or industry is going to remain insulated from these uncertainties, which are stemming from pressures across fiscal, regulatory, political, and social aspects. And the world increasingly is becoming uncertain and volatile, which we see and which we somehow term as the new normal. So people need to accept this as the new normal going forward and learn to adapt to that and learn to run their businesses within such a challenging environment. Now, the year 2013 has also seen several significant events which have added to this extent of complexity. Now, we've seen the most powerful European economies facing a period of prolonged slowdown. Once the poster boys of growth, global growth like India and China are facing a slowdown in growth. Some of the North African nations and countries like Libya, Yemen, and Egypt have undergone changes in governance. So all this has together changed the landscape of how macroeconomically and geopolitically the world used to operate. So 2013 has been a year where some of these changes have taken place, but it's been on for some time now. Now, if we look at what it means for economies and financial markets, a lot of these changes have reflected in global economies and financial markets. And what we've done here is try to look at some of these indicators to depict this volatility. Now, as we have seen, the Sensex, for example, has shown huge fluctuations through the year. The Indian currency has undergone a lot of fluctuations, as Venki also outlined. Now, what it meant was it directly impacted export-import businesses, and especially imports, where the rate fluctuations really impacted their costs to a great extent. Now, companies do have pretty agile and flexible hedging policies in place, but the operating word here has been unprecedented. The changes have been unprecedented, and hence, companies have not been able to manage the risks to a great extent. Now, what we've seen is that there's several global forces which are acting together today and really changing the global landscape. Now, what's happening is these global forces or mega trends, as we see, are inescapable. Now, we have to face the reality that these are here and here to stay. Now, successful organizations are those which are able to identify, adapt, and adopt to these trends or forces sooner than competition. So they are the ones who are going to have the edge. Let me try and outline some of these mega trends. We see them as 5 mega trends which are shaping the world today. Now, first, let me talk about the demographic shifts. Now, the world population today is undergoing a shift in the demographic profiles. Now, these shifts are happening across income levels, especially as we have seen in the aspirational growing middle class across emerging markets. The income level of the middle class is growing. The purchasing power is increasing, and backed by that aspirational nature, it's giving rise to huge consumption domestically within the countries. Now, there are trends in terms of certain segments growing more rapidly than the others, and certain societies aging more rapidly. For example, China. Now, what does it mean? Now, if you just look at the graphics, so just showing 2010, what the profile looked like, and what it's projected to be in 2050. So what essentially means is companies need to shift their offerings, need to shift their products to address these different segments. Now, for example, if I talk about an aging population, what it means is the healthcare system needs to be re-engineered. There'll be pressures on pension costs. The workforce needs to be retooled. Now, how do we reskill older workers? Migrant workers need to be dependent on. We need to create jobs for people who are aging. So I think those are some of the considerations which will determine how businesses and governments react to demographic shifts. Let me talk about shift in economic power. As we have seen, as this graphic tries to illustrate, if I look at 2 time frames really, now 2012 and 2050. Now, in 2012, the G7 or the developed economies were at $31 trillion, growing to 69 in 2050. For the same time frame, the emerging economies of the E7 are expected to grow from 26 to 138. Now, just the sheer scale of growth, it presents a huge opportunity. Now, what it says is, now, as we have seen, companies are increasingly shifting their market and operating focus from developed markets to emerging markets, because that's where the opportunity lies. right? And these emerging economies, which were traditionally seen as a low-cost proposition, driven by labor and manufacturing advantages, today present a huge revenue potential because of the very strong domestic consumption. So the domestic consumption potential of these economies, especially a country like India, driven by the aspirational middle class, the large population base, is a huge opportunity that the companies want to tap into. And what it's also doing is that it's impacting the direction of trade and capital flows. We see a lot of capital flow today amongst emerging economies, or what we call as south-to-south commerce. And that is actually growing at a pace much rapid or much faster than the traditional routes of developed to developed market flows or developed to emerging market flows. And the other trend is globalization. We see a lot of emerging market companies today wanting to globalize, go out, actually become global companies. They see their revenues being contributed, international revenues being contributed to more than 50%. And what it's doing is it's giving rise to a new class of organizations. And India, for example, is expected to have the largest number of emerging market multinationals by the year 2020, which I think is a significant story. If I look at the third mega trend, which talks about urbanization. Now, in the 50s, about 30% of the world's population lived in cities, which is about 50% today, and expected to grow about to 72% by 2050, which I think is an astronomical significant rise. Now, what it means is, and most of this growth is going to come in Asia and Africa, and backed by large rural migration from rural areas to cities. Now, what it actually means is that it's going to, as a result, create a lot of pressure on the city infrastructure. The city authorities need to take care of needs, basic infrastructure like housing, shelter, even safety. The UN estimates by the year 2015, there are going to be about 22 mega cities, that's cities with a population of 10 million or more. And so this entire concept of urbanization, which is a reality today, is going to impact what's happening across the world. If you look at climate change and resource scarcity, now these are two important economic concerns. Now there is a shortage of resources, there is a shortage of energy. The energy consumption is growing very rapidly, expected to grow by about 50% by the year 2030, and water withdrawals expected to increase by about 40%. Now these are scarce resources, and these are depleting at pretty alarming rates. So what does it mean for us? The governments and institutions will come up with policies or regulations to manage this, and which will in turn impact the direction and operating model of companies. They need to be able to address and respond to these regulations, and hence contribute to the volatility and uncertainty economically and across the corporate landscape.